Have you ever really stopped to wonder what's going on inside your head when you think? Well, today, we're going on a little tour inside the human mind to understand the mechanics of thought itself. It's pretty amazing stuff.
So let's just start with the biggest question of all. What actually is a thought? When an idea or a memory just sort of pops into your head out of nowhere, what is physically happening in there to make that possible? All right, to get our heads around this, we're going to break it down into 6 simple parts. We'll start with the brain's tiny wires, then look at their chemical conversations, see why practice really does make perfect, meet the brain's specialized team, watch a thought in action, and finish up with the coolest part, how you can actually change your own brain.
First things first, before we can understand the big picture, we've got to meet the basic building block of this whole system, the individual cells that do all the heavy lifting.
And they're called neurons. The easiest way to think of them is like the biological wiring in your brain. And you have billions of them, literally billions, all firing away, sending and receiving signals that, together, create, well, you.
What's so amazing is that each one of these neurons is perfectly designed for communication. You've got the cell body, that's kind of like the main headquarters. Then there are the dendrites, which act like antennas, listening for any incoming signals. And then there's the axon, which is the long cable that sends the message out to the next neuron in line.
So if you've got billions of these little wires, how do they actually pass a message along? I mean, they're all separate cells. So how does the signal get from one to the next?
Well, here's the wild part. They don't actually touch. There's this tiny microscopic gap between them called a synapse. And it's in that little space that all the magic of communication really happens.
The whole process is basically like a lightning-fast chemical handshake. It happens in 3 steps. First, one neuron releases some chemicals. Second, those chemicals float across the gap. And third, the next neuron scoops them up, and that's the signal to pass the message on. It's this incredibly elegant and super fast relay race.
Okay, so we've got messages being passed between neurons. But how does that turn into something complex, like a memory or a skill? How does it all come together to mean something?
And here's the absolute key. A thought isn't just one neuron doing its own thing. It's a specific pattern of millions of them all firing together in sync. That coordinated pattern, that is the thought. And when they fire together over and over, they create a kind of highway in your brain called a neural pathway.
Just think about learning a new skill versus doing something you've mastered. Trying to play a new chord on a guitar? That's that faint pathway on the left. It's slow, clumsy, and you have to focus like crazy. But what about tying your shoes? That's the strong, super efficient highway on the right. It's completely automatic because that pathway is so well built.
This is the real science behind that old saying. Every single time you practice something, you are literally paving that mental highway. You're making the connections between those specific neurons stronger and faster. You are physically changing your brain.
Okay, so let's zoom out from the individual wires and highways for a second and meet the specialized departments of the brain, the big regions that are in charge of different jobs.
It's really useful to think of them as a team. You've got the cerebral cortex. That's the CEO, handling all the complex, high-level thinking. Then you have the hippocampus, which is kind of like the company's librarian, filing away all your new memories. And then there's the amygdala. That's your emotional advisor, the part that flags what's important, scary, or exciting.
All right, so we've met the players now. We've got the neurons, the pathways, and the different brain regions. So let's see how they all work together in real time to create a single, complete thought.
It's really just a constant 3-step loop. First, your senses send some kind of input to your brain. Let's say you see a friend's face. Your brain immediately starts processing it. It checks with the hippocampus, which says, hey, I know that person, and the amygdala, which says, I'm happy to see them. And finally, the cortex, the CEO, analyzes all that data and creates an output. You smile and say, hello.
So this whole journey, understanding how we think, it all leads to what is maybe the single most incredible and empowering idea in all of modern science. And it's a concept called neuroplasticity. All that really means is that your brain isn't a fixed, static organ that you're just stuck with. It's dynamic, it's adaptable, it is constantly changing and rewiring itself.
So think about this. Every new thing you learn, every skill you practice, even the thoughts that you choose to focus on, all of those things are physically sculpting the structure of your brain. It's like a living piece of clay that you're always working on.
And what that means is that you have a powerful, active role in shaping the very organ you use to experience the entire world. In a very real sense, you are the architect of your own mind.
Which really just leaves us with one last powerful question to think about. Knowing that you can physically change your brain with your choices, what new highway will you decide to build? What are you going to learn next?